Hello and welcome to this bonus episode of the Evolution of Horror. My name is Mike and as ever I am your host. Now usually on this podcast we explore and dissect the evolution of the horror genre by looking at particular subgenres across several weeks. However, we finished our series on the zombie subgenre a couple of weeks ago and we will not be starting our next series on occult horror until October 2019. However, that's not to say that there aren't a few interesting, exciting horror related items to cover over the summer. One of the biggies, is of course the UK's biggest horror festival that happens in August every year, Frightfest. Now, I'm sure many of you who listen to this podcast, particularly UK-based listeners, are familiar with Frightfest. I'm sure many of you have been before. It is an extravaganza of all things horror and genre movies. 5 back-to-back days. This year it's the 22nd of August and it ends on the 26th of August. Non-stop horror movies. It's really good fun. And if you're considering going for the first time, I think this year would be the perfect time to do it. Because Frightfest will be celebrating their 20th anniversary. So it's the 20th festival this year, which means I think there are going to be extra special treats to enjoy. Not only that, I'm going to be there, as well as a whole bunch of other Evolution of Horror contributors and Evolution of Horror listeners, members of the Facebook group. A whole bunch of us will be going. So not only do you get to watch really interesting new horror films back to back across 5 days, you also get to hang out and drink and have fun with us. So this Saturday, 6th of July at midday is when tickets go on sale. You can get yourself tickets to individual films. You can get yourself tickets for a whole day, so you could just go for the Saturday or just for the Sunday or just for the Monday or whatever. Or you can get the big weekend pass, which means you can go for the entire 5 days from Thursday to Monday and watch every single film that plays on the big screen. Now, the thing with Frightfest is that there are so many movies and so many different movies to choose from. So there are usually at least 3 different horror movies, new horror movies going on at the same time, simultaneously on different screens. So it's really hard to know sometimes which ones to pick. Now today, on the day this episode got released, the programme, the official lineup of films was released. So you can go onto the Frightfest website and you can check out every single film. But again, it can be a bit of an overwhelming amount of information to consume. I definitely find it's quite difficult. In fact, what ends up happening is that I don't bother. I end up letting other people recommend to me what's worth seeing in what particular screen. So I thought, who better to hear from about recommendations for what to see and what not to miss at Frightfest this year than one of its co-founders. He joined me this time last year, to discuss the lineup, and he's back. I'm so pleased to have him here again, the brilliant Paul McEvoy. So if you are at all interested in Frightfest, you're about to hear the lowdown, what we can expect this year and what movies we absolutely cannot miss at Frightfest 2019. Here we go. Okay, welcome back, Paul McEvoy. Hello.
Hey, Mike.
Hello. Lovely to have you here again.
Great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
No worries at all. Very excited. This is one of my most exciting times of the year when the Frightfest lineup is released. We'll get into that in a minute. First of all, I mean, we touched upon this briefly last year, and I know there were a bunch of listeners of this podcast who were kind of umming and ahhing about whether or not to go for the first time. I think we've got the same thing again this year. You know, maybe people kind of maybe worried that they don't know anyone and should they get a ticket by themselves and that kind of thing. I mean, what would be your response to that about people kind of on the fence about whether to go?
I would say, come. Join the happy family. Yeah, I mean, the festival's been going, this is our 20th event. So it's really weird because we keep wondering whether to call it 20th anniversary, because we started in the year 2000.
Yes.
And obviously it's now 2019. So,
yes.
And over that time, we've shown well over 1,000 films.
Oh my God.
All like big premieres and whatever. So, the festival itself this year takes place at the Empire Leicester Square, or Cineworld, whatever it is.
Let's be honest, it's always the Empire,
it's
isn't it?
It's always got a big Empire sign out the front.
Yes.
On the IMAX screen,
yes,
and on the Impact or whatever that's called these days. I think that keeps changing name as well.
Yeah.
And one of the other screens there, plus 2 screens at the Prince Charles.
Brilliant.
And the passes and stuff go on sale on Saturday. So that is for the weekend pass. So then it allows you to see everything. You can pick and choose, a bit like Glastonbury, blah, blah, blah. And the day passes go on sale as well.
Brilliant.
If people are thinking of coming for the first time, perhaps dip their little toe or your little toe in the water,
Yes.
and perhaps just buy a single ticket. Those go on sale in a couple of weeks' time.
Yes.
But I think most people, when they come, they think, oh, crikey, I'm missing out on something amazing, and I've got to now buy a weekend pass or a day pass or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think if you do go alone, Alex Kidd, who does our Twitter, if you're on Twitter and Facebook to a lesser degree, but mainly Twitter, if you say that you're coming on your own, the response immediately from the regulars is, come and join us.
Yes.
And come and have a drink, or if you don't drink, come and have a Coca-Cola or whatever. I think the festival's what you make it. Yeah. So if you're sat with like-minded folks watching like-minded films, whether you love them or hate them or every shade of the spectrum in between, talk to people, unless you're too shy, but then somebody's probably going to be speaking to you anyway.
Yeah, you'll always get somebody, hopefully, to chat to. I had a very similar journey. I think my first Frightfest was... Maybe, was it 2011? It was the year when I went to see just one film, and it was Kill List, where Ben Wheatley introduced it. Incredible. Then from then on, I went and did the full festivals. First couple of years, I think I mainly just came, watched the films, went home almost. But now I pretty much go more for the people than for the... Well, I come for the films as well, but it's just as much. It's 50-50,
do you know what? That's precisely the point. I mean, we're on the eve currently, when we're recording this, of the lineup being announced. And to be honest with you, I'm very, very excited about the lineup. But I'm more excited about everybody getting back together in the community, because that's what it's all about. The films are, of course, they're important. Yeah. But to be honest with you, the friendships, the relationships, the comradeship of the people, it's just... There's nothing like it in the world. And I mean, I've been to every single genre and non-genre festival, from Cannes to Toronto to Sitges, which is amazing, by the way, and fantastic fest. But none of them really have the atmosphere of this. I mean, it's really interesting, and something which we can't quite pin down. But obviously we cultivate that, and we hope that that's the case. So. Yeah,
absolutely. And tell me a bit, because like you said, it's the 20th year this year. I wasn't there for the first one, but what was that like? What are your memories of Frightfest 2000, and how far have we come since then?
We've come a long way. My hair's got greyer. I think, the first year we were at the Prince Charles, but that was when it was the original two. Do you remember the two levels of the Prince Charles?
Yes.
470 seats.
Yes.
With a balcony and everything else. It was a really, really strong year from what I remember. What the hell did we show?
God knows. Remember? I've got no idea. No idea.
I'll have to check on Wikipedia.
Yeah. But I suppose it was that more intimate kind of everyone all in one screen together at that point, wasn't
it? Absolutely, yes. But then that's obviously through needs must. We've had to move venues quite a few times, not because of us, but because of venues and the ever-changing landscape of London, and in fact the world. Cinema going is totally changing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Into multiplex, Avengers everywhere, Spider-Man or whatever it is, Star Wars.
So true.
So I think one of the key things that people have to remember from coming to an event like Frightfest, and not just Frightfest, Sitges, Fantastic Fest, etc., is the brilliance of being able to watch some of these films as they're meant to be seen on the big screen, because we are saturated with too much Hollywood product and lots of other independent releases as well, but a lot of horror stuff. And of course we do support all horror genre pictures as they come out through the year. We were just talking about Hereditary, and we're talking about Midsommar, which are going to be big hits, and obviously It last year. So I'm not saying horror doesn't get the distribution it deserves, but it's very rare that you're going to see some of the gems that we've discovered this year, which we'll get to in a little while probably.
Yes.
It's going to be wonderful seeing them on the big screen, because in your local multiplex, they're just not going to program them or show them.
Yeah, it's true.
Obviously, there will be certain outlets and certain other independent cinemas throughout the world and throughout the UK that will be brave and program some of this stuff. And of course, we'll get to some of the titles. Some of the titles this year are big studio pictures. So they will get wide release as well. So,
but it's still not the same, is it, as seeing it with a Frightfest audience?
No,
I think there's something about it. And
the electricity.
Yeah, and you're right. And there are probably, by their very nature, a lot of the films that you get at Frightfest might end up on something like a streaming service, right, or something like that. And again, great that they're accessible, but also there's something missing, I find, from when I watch it the first time with a Frightfest audience to watching it on my own in my living room. A lot of the time.
It's interesting. because a lot of the stuff that's purpose-built, purpose-made for Netflix now, they never get shown on any.
No.
And I'm still waiting to watch the Nick Refn
I
show.
know, me too, yeah.
But I want to watch it, probably at a friend's or whatever, on a big screen, big and loud and sexy, like I watched Twin Peaks. I waited and watched...
Did you watch it on the big screen?
I watched it on the big screen, ran a friend's, but my friend had this enormous, like 25-foot, with fantastic sound. So it was just like going to the cinema instead of watching it. And I'm a massive David Lynch fan.
Me too.
And same with Refn. And I know I've heard such mixed and divisive things on the Refn
me too.
show.
As with all Refn.
Which means I can't wait to see it.
yeah.
Which is exactly the same as, again, we'll talk about the Frightfest stuff in a minute, but some stuff's going to divide audiences. And that sometimes is the most exciting thing when you've got something that plays beyond expectations or lower than expectations.
Yes.
And often people remember more fondly some of the really bad screenings that they've had.
Of course. And again, it's all part of that, like we said, the kind of the social aspect. You come out and you go to the pub around the corner afterwards and you go, oh, that was amazing, or that was absolutely awful, or whatever it might be, but it's all part of the experience, isn't it? That's the thing.
And also everybody has to have a knee-jerk reaction. I mean, rather than like letting it...
You've got to tweet, you've got to go on Letterboxd, you've got to rank it straight away.
Go on Twitter straight away. That was rubbish. That was amazing.
Exactly. That's
and
all
we're all a bit guilty of that.
Of course. It's all part of it, isn't it? Before we get into the films as well, just tell us a little bit again, for people that don't know, the kind of how it works with... So you've got films, because we'll probably be mentioning films that are playing on the main screen and films that are playing on the Discovery screen, right? So what do we mean by that?
So... It's much more now with 5 screens running pretty much concurrently all times.
Yeah.
So you've got what we call the main screen, which is the IMAX screen and the Impact screen at the Empire. So I think there's like 20 odd or 26, 27 selections that are screening there. So when you've got your weekend pass, you can sit in that screen and you've got your seat for the entire weekend.
Yes.
What I would encourage you to do, though, is look at the stuff that's also screening on the other screens.
Yeah.
Read the synopsis carefully or just read the title. So if you don't fancy something on the main screen, you're likely to find something that's really going to pique your interest on one of the other screens. So, for example, this year we've got a lot of great movies, in fact, across the board, but some really, really wonderful ones playing on the main screen of the Prince Charles, which is 320, 330 seats, whatever that is. So it's only because of us having to shift with the times that there's no cinema that can hold us. There's no one big cinema. But then it makes everybody's choices very, very difficult. And I've seen some of the clashes, and they're not pretty.
Oh no!
But A, you're going to catch up with these films later on. B, as I say to people, on the day, you might have had a diet throughout the day of, hopefully a good diet of not McDonald's.
Although on Leicester Square, you know.
But you might be sort of, how shall I say it, hardcore horrored out. So you might... On the day, at 4 o'clock, you might fancy a lighter, more comedic picture.
Yeah.
Whereas previously, even a day before, you might think, right, I really, really want to see that.
Yeah.
So I think it changes. And it's good to have that wide variety of stuff, because one of the criticisms that we received a few years ago, I think about 6-7 years ago, when we were just running 2, maybe 3 screens, was we were forcing people a very specific diet.
Right.
Some nasty,
hardcore
quite nasty
stuff.
films.
Yeah.
But
that was a little bit more the climate of horror about 6 or 7 years ago as well, wasn't it?
But then, so now we can't really be accused of that, because you can look, and if again we screen a movie. Dominic Brunt's Attack of the Adult Babies. And people come up to us at the end and said, what the hell was that? You know, it's a fun, light, strange, really, really left field alternate movie. But what were you expecting? From the synopsis and from just the title alone, were you expecting a serious horror piece? I'm sorry.
It's so true. And I remember last year, you know, because often, like you say, some of the films people talk about the most might be the Discovery screen ones. And maybe that's part of that, discovering it. But the last year we had One Cut of the Dead in the Discovery screen, and we also had Tigers Are Not Afraid. I would say 2 of the most talked about films. And I just wondered, how do you make that decision? Do you regret decisions like that when you put those 2 movies in the smaller screen rather than the main screen?
Well, Tigers Are Not Afraid, I knew was going to play well, and it still is one of my favourite films we've ever ever screened.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's still not out in the UK. What a treat to watch that on the big screen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with that one in particular, we had UK premiered it as part of the Frightfest in Glasgow.
Right, yeah.
Because we do Frightfest as part of the Glasgow Film Festival every year, which is around about late February, early March. So we always feel that to re-screen titles from Glasgow, and a lot of people do travel, a lot of the regular Frightfesters, they do travel from London and beyond to Glasgow, to give them that again on the big screen, although I'd have loved to have shown it there. It's not fair. So again, this year I think we're showing 2 repeats from Glasgow.
Oh, great.
But they're both in the Discovery screens.
Sure.
And the other thing about the difficult choices that people make, and I'm saying this to everybody out there who's now reading or has read the schedule and said, oh my God, that clashes with that. You'll catch up with all of these in the end.
You're right, actually.
And essentially what we say to directors and producers when they turn up to Frightfest and they're up against a really big ticket item, and hopefully their screens or screenings are fairly busy. What we say to them is, look, we're really sorry you are up against this, but you've got a great audience here. So but when we select the Frightfest pictures, it puts the titles immediately on everybody's radar.
Sure.
And on their checklist and tick list.
Yes.
Because that's one of the genius things about horror fans and genre fans, as you know, Mike, is for better for worse, whatever we hear about specific movies and specific titles, we have to see them. We have to make up our own minds.
It's so true. It's so true. And it's one of the few genres, isn't it, where it feels like it doesn't really matter about the talent behind it. It could be no one involved that you know of. It's all word of mouth. It's all what you're told is worth watching and that kind of thing.
I would say with the various platforms, most of the stuff, you within 6 months to 8 months, you'll probably get to see. There will be the odd title that we've screened that never saw the light of day for whatever reason, not necessarily because they're bad films.
No.
Just
there's all kinds of reasons, right?
There is all from sales agents to producers to distribution, etc. So, for example, with Tigers, which if you haven't seen it, for God's sake, you must see it. It's coming out from Shudder later on in the year.
Great. At last.
They're putting it out, thank goodness.
I want to ask before, let me start with asking you about the 2 Glasgow ones then, because I went to Glasgow this year. It was my first time. I loved it. And is it my favourite one, which was the black and white? Is it that one?
It is.
Oh, yes. Amazing.
What a brilliant bit of telepathy, because Mike hasn't seen the list of the movies that we're showing.
I really haven't,
Yeah, Here Comes Hell.
Brilliant.
Black and white. You explain. You give the synopsis. Go on.
I shouted about it to everyone when it came out. I thought it was so much fun. It's a kind of. I think they described it, or you described it in the program, as a kind of Agatha Christie meets Lucio Fulci type thing. A kind of old dark house murder mystery, black and white, and it's kind of tongue in cheek, but it also really pays loving homage to the horror genre, and it's got lots of squelchiness, and it's really funny, and I just had a a great time watching
Downton Abbey meets Sam Raimi or Peter Jackson.
Exactly. Peter Jackson,
first time feature filmmaker from London.
Oh, and he's only about bloody 19 or something annoying.
I know. So I'm delighted. So basically for that, it's the English premiere.
Brilliant.
So
good.
Again, we were just talking about the premiership status on stuff. This year we've got UK, world, international, and European premieres.
What will happen after Brexit with European?
We don't talk about Brexit.
Yeah. No, we won't get into that. Amazing. All right, well, let's get into it then. I'd love to hear some of the sort of movies that you're keen to recommend. So first of all, I mean, I'll ask you sort of a few different movies, but first of all, tell me about a couple of the biggies. We know the opening and closing films already.
Yes.
But what are some of the biggies that you're keen to sort of let us know about?
Let's briefly talk about the opening and closing. So, Come to Daddy is phenomenal. What a great cast. Elijah Wood. Oh, just
he's kind of become
amazing.
A bit of a hero of the genre the last few years, hasn't he?
With Spectrevision and everything else, with Mandy and all that kind of stuff, and Cooties. This is terrific. This is a first-time director, Ant Timpson, who a lot of your listeners will probably know from. He's a producer of some brilliant features over the years, from Deathgasm to The Devil Dared Me to goodness me, ABCs of Death. Yeah, so it's his first directorial outing, and I'm so pleased to say when I saw it, it absolutely delivers. It's just so good. And it's the perfect kickoff. And again, it takes you in areas that you wouldn't expect it to go. And yeah, Ant's done a great job with that.
Fantastic. And then the closing film.
The closing film is A Good Woman Is Hard to Find. Sarah Bolger is phenomenal in this film. And it's Abner Pastal, who directed Road Games
Great.
A couple of years ago. So we're delighted this is the world premiere, and it's going to look and sound amazing on the big screen. And I promise it won't be as divisive as last year's previous Climax. Climax.
I can't believe that even was divisive. I thought it was phenomenal.
Well,
it was my film of the year last year. Loved it. Brilliant. So that already really strong opening and closer. What else have we got? What are the other kind of biggies or some of the sort of headlining films that we could start with?
So a couple of the big studio pictures. We've got Alex Ayer's Crawl, which is the killer gator.
Yes.
Gators,
fantastic. So big monster movie.
Big monster picture. So that's opening night as well, straight after Come to Daddy.
Okay, nice.
And then we've got Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which is Guillermo del Toro's producing.
Oh my
and
God.
It's Andre Ovredal, who did Troll Hunter.
I'm very excited. Did you I mean, obviously you're going to tell me you did, but did you like it? Are you a fan of this? Because I've been so looking forward to it.
Some of these I can't actually talk about.
Okay, interesting.
Because obviously we've you can read about them and you can read we'll watch the trailers, but we've had to sign NDAs.
Sure.
Including for Crawl as well.
Okay. All right, excellent. Okay.
And the same for this next one as well, which really, I love it. Ready or Not, which is the Radio Silence people who did one of the segments of VHS.
Great.
Again, a big studio picture, but really terrific. Like, properly.
Holy shit!
I had to play along so that I can get you out.
It's insane.
They think they have to kill you before sunrise, or something very bad will happen to the family.
If we don't find her and perform the ritual, we're all dead.
Found her.
So that gives you a little flavour of some of those, because that's the nice thing about one of the great things about this year. We always do have some big ticket, big release genre pictures, but I think the beauty of coming to Frightfest is the stuff that you're going to discover.
Yeah,
because it's good to have those amazing pieces that everybody's going to be talking about and wanting to see, but the real meat's going to be in the stuff that you've never heard of. And I think this year we've got something like 21 or 22, again, it keeps changing, world premieres of stuff that people will, and even you, won't be on your radar.
Fantastic.
But let's stick with the main screen.
Yeah.
One of my absolute favourite films of the year is Knives and Skin.
Ooh, okay.
I come home in the morning light. My mother says, when you gonna live your life right? Oh, mother dear, we're not the fortunate ones, and girls, they wanna have fun.
Which is Jennifer Reeder, it's a female director
Great.
from America. It premiered in Berlin, I think it was. This is a wonderful, wonderful film. Very Twin Peaks meets Heathers with an incredible music. Oh, it's on the IMAX screen. It's going to look and sound absolute. I know. I always get quoted. This is going to look and sound absolutely amazing, but it really, really will.
Oh,
and
great.
Of course, we've got a bunch of female-directed pictures this year, which is, I think, interesting, because I think we've always had female-directed genre pictures in Frightfest, but nobody's ever really made the differentiation between, that's a female-directed film and blah, blah, blah. Imitation Girl comes to mind, and obviously Tiger's Not Afraid. But I think this year, very much from the submissions process, we've found that there's a lot more exciting female genre directing talent, which are purely picked on their own worth, not picked because of gender, but picked because of quality. Another great one is Satanic Panic, which is Chelsea Stardust's film, and again, big screen outing, great cast, Rebecca Romaine Stamos, etc., etc., etc. Terrific film.
I've heard of that one, Satanic Panic. Very exciting, yeah.
And then we've got a UK director, Tales from the Lodge, which stars Mackenzie Crook and what's his name, Johnny Vegas. So it's like multi-stories.
It's not like the Sex Lives of the Potato Man with those two, is it?
Actually, yeah, I totally forgot that they were both in that. Wow, God, you've got a good memory. And we're delighted to have the world premiere of the Soska Sisters remix or reimagining of Rabid. So they're
brilliant.
flying in. They're coming in for the big world premiere, which is going to be amazing.
That's great. You don't have to give away too much if you don't want to, but how close is it to the original? It's
got some of the similar beats, but it does riff off quite often and in interesting ways. And interestingly enough, we've also got a restoration screening of Cronenberg's original Rabid as well over the weekend.
Fantastic.
Which the Oscars will be introducing as well.
Amazing.
So there you go.
That's very exciting. So what about, I'm going to ask you a few quick sort of different categories, I suppose. So what would you say? I remember last year you me asking you about the scariest movie, and you said Terrified, which it absolutely was. Any films come to mind this year with kind of what one is going to really scare the shit out of us?
Scary ones. I reckon The Deeper You Dig is a really, really good one to watch out for.
The Deeper You Dig.
The Deeper You Dig.
Okay,
yes.
good.
And one called Dakra, which has been doing the festival circuit, but that's a really, really strong one.
Okay.
And there's more, but the thing is, I think it's nice to go in sometimes totally unprepared.
Sure. I
wonder if this one's going to scare me or not.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah, no, I suppose that's part of it, isn't it? It's not knowing what you're in for a lot of the time. It's hard to know. I always wrestle with whether or not to read the programme and actually read about these films, or just to sit there and just let them come at me, not knowing anything about them.
Some people literally go through every single fart to the ounce and check the trailer, read every synopsis, read every review, and then others do not.
Yeah.
They do not want to know anything about
And there is that
film.
There is that element now because of all the screens that you do have to do a little bit of reading up, I suppose.
Yeah.
But
otherwise you're going to have Attack of the Adult Baby, which I've done.
Exactly. Okay, what about we mentioned, you always get a few sort of more hardened sort of horror end of the spectrum for people that might like their more. I remember last year we had a incident in a ghost land, which was again quite divisive and shocked quite a lot of people. Any movies like that this year? Any of the more sort of hardcore end of the spectrum?
Ooh, okay. I think in terms of strong horror, I think, and this is one that will not be on anybody's radar at all.
Okay.
Porno.
Okay, good. I like the title already. Yep.
Which has got. It's about.
You look speechless there.
What can I say? It's kind of repertory cinema finding reels from a lost film that they then show just over a staff screening of it. Yeah.
Okay.
And obviously, for people who don't like spoilers, that's as non-spoilery.
That's as much as
I can get.
Okay, good. That's good to know.
Bloodline as well is another scary one. My goodness, there is just so many. I think, as I say, we the last count it was 78 titles.
Amazing,
so
fantastic.
There's a lot.
That's great.
A lot to choose from.
Any in particular that are kind of very much the kind of hidden gems, maybe that no one will have seen or heard of? Maybe something in a Discovery screen which you personally, Paul, think you can't miss it. Any recommendations?
Well, one that's really interesting, and I watched it. We selected it a couple of months ago. It's actually a documentary called Sick, Savage, Sensual, The Real Life and Ghastly Death of Al Adamson.
Wow, okay.
Which really, because I didn't know much about Al
Adamson.
I've obviously seen a bunch of his movies, but the documentary is terrific. I mean, it's properly moving, shocking, sad, just a wonderful piece of work.
Oh, fantastic.
I love The Legend of the Stardust Brothers.
Oh, okay, good title.
Which is a Japanese film that was never released, or it got a very, very patchy release outside of Japan. So they've just done this restoration of it with the English subtitling. And it's a hell of a laugh. I mean, it's a proper full-bore Rocky Horror-esque musical.
Brilliant.
Made back in the 1980s or whatever, and it's a real eye-opener.
Oh, wow.
Really, really love that.
Fantastic.
But one of, as I said before, Knives and Skin, for me, I think is just a masterpiece.
Oh, I'm so excited. I can't wait.
There you go. That's one not to miss.
And actually, we mentioned Here Comes Hell from Glasgow. What was the other one from Glasgow that's coming to London?
The other one from Glasgow is Freaks, which blew the roof off.
What are you doing? Someone could have seen you.
You know the punishment for breaking the rules.
No, Dad!
You opened the door. You almost got us killed. You have to stay hidden.
Till when?
This is not a game. Did you go outside?
No,
You can never lie to me.
I'm not lying.
You wanna know what's in an ice cream truck? Frozen kid bodies.
Come inside. Taste any flavor you want.
It's interesting, the two that we've reselected because they haven't come out yet and because they played so brilliantly.
Yes.
They throw you a curveball, don't you? Don't know, because you've seen both of them.
Loved them both.
Both in the first 45 minutes to an hour, they didn't tell you where the film was going.
Right, absolutely. And actually, and that's another thing we haven't really mentioned, but Freaks in particular is more of a kind of sci-fi fantasy genre film, I would say, than horror. And actually,
yes.
that is, I mean, Frightfest isn't always exclusively horror, right?
Absolutely
I mean, you do have a range of stuff.
We've always done the cross-genre stuff, so horror, science fiction, fantasy, and
Yeah,
thriller.
yeah.
Although we're called Frightfest,
Yeah.
it's not just wall-to-wall horror.
Yeah.
It's there's a lot of horror. If we were screening 78 films and they were all blood, guts, gore, stalk, slash,
Yes.
the man on the street's typical
Yeah.
response, I'm sure you get it as well when you say what you do,
Yes,
Mike.
yes,
you
yes.
know,
People go,
and they
"Ugh."
say, "Oh, well, it's all blood and guts," and then you say, "Well, do you like Jaws? Do you like Misery? Do you like Silence of the Lambs?"
Yeah,
and they're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I don't mind some
Yeah.
of those. Even if we were offered it back in the day, Shawshank Redemption would have fitted into the Frightfest bill.
Yeah.
Because, we've done Donnie Darko and Let the Right One In and all that. And even, remember that Jet Li picture, Kiss of the Dragon? We
Oh,
even did
wow,
that
yeah.
way back in the day.
Yeah.
So
I suppose Tigers last year as well. Tigers Are Not Afraid, not exactly a straight up horror.
It's like a fantastical
yes.
piece, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I must mention that we also have a major guest coming in. Dario Argento is going to be coming to Frightfest because there's a new book which Alan Jones, my co-director, one of my co-directors at Frightfest, has been working on, which is autobiography, which came out in Italy, I think a year or two ago. But Alan, along with Fab Press, Harvey at Fab Press, has been rewriting it, redoing it, adding pictures and stuff like that. So I know that Alan's doing like an on-stage interview with Dario at the Prince Charles. I think they're doing Tenebrae as well, like a big screen outing for
Fantastic.
Masterpiece Tenebrae. So,
That's brilliant.
and now with the guests, we haven't actually, because we always do like a major guest announcement in about 2 or 3 weeks, partly because guests' schedules change. So if we were to announce all the guests now, it would be changing because say you were either director or star of one of the films. If you said, "Yeah, Paul, I definitely want to come. I'm going to support the film," and then 2 weeks before or even a week before you get another gig,
that's it.
a massive paid gig. Obviously, you're going to try and divert that from attending Frightfest. So the guest list is ever changing, literally on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But we are announcing that the Soskers are coming with Rabid and Dario with the brand new book.
That's really exciting. Dario Argento, what a legend as well. That's fantastic. Brilliant. Anything else that's worth mentioning before we wrap up?
Goodness me.
Anything else?
Well, one that I know that you're going to be very interested in.
Yes, all gone.
It is another documentary. And I'm just going to get the title of it. But it's on the director Michael Reeves.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And this will be the world premiere.
Yes.
And it's all about his life. And I'm trying to think what it's called. In fact, I'm just looking now. The Magnificent Obsession of Michael Reeves.
Wow.
Which has got some of the folk horror stuff in it.
So Michael Reeves, director of Witchfinder General,
exactly that,
who died very young, shortly after Witchfinder General.
Tells you all about that. So that's another very interesting documentary to look out for.
Wow.
And look, as
we could go on and on, couldn't we? Yeah.
We haven't got 4 hours, so I think what all your listeners should do is check out the website.
Yes,
because there's so much I haven't mentioned.
No,
my God,
that's fine. And in terms of the non-filmy stuff, you there's always stuff going on. There's usually karaoke right on the Sunday night and that kind of thing. All of the usual kind of social stuff happening.
Yes, we're actually doing a big event on the Wednesday night. In the newly refurbished Phoenix Arts Club, which is just below the Phoenix Theatre just off Charing Cross Road, on the 21st, because a lot of people come into town early for Frightfest and they're coming in from around the world, whatever. So we always get asked, you must try and do something. And in previous years, we have done quizzes and stuff like that. But this year, we're going to be doing, again, at the Phoenix Arts Club, they're newly refurbished. They've knocked down the walls. So it's all. I don't know if you've been in there recently.
I haven't. Not since
But it
last year's
looks
Frightfest.
and sounds amazing. They've redone the lighting. They've redone the sound.
Oh, cool.
They've knocked the wall down, so it's one big space now.
Oh, that's better because it did get very it kind of bottlenecks
Yes,
there at one point.
And apparently they're extending the bar as well, so that's
Okay.
even crazier. So this is 9 o'clock on the 21st. So come, even if you're not going to Frightfest, although it would be advisable if you can come. We're doing a big quiz night. So Arrow, who's one of our major sponsor, will be giving some amazing prizes out for that night.
Yep.
And we've got Giles Edwards,
The man who knows everything about film.
exactly,
Yes.
and he was the. So when we was at the Empire, we used to do the quiz, and most people were in teams of like 3 or 4. And I think Andy Nyman was the host for a couple of the years.
Yes.
Bless Andy Nyman.
Love Andy Nyman.
And Giles Edwards, I think's been on your
He
show.
has, yeah.
He won it single-handedly, and it was one of the most difficult quizzes. I mean, I would not have had. He must have an encyclopedic.
I don't know how he does
knowledge
it. I really
up
don't
there
know
with
how-
Kim Newman.
Yeah,
But obviously, Kim works entirely
Yes.
in film and reviewing blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Whereas Giles absolutely does as well, but to a lesser. Anyway,
Yeah.
so Giles is setting the questions.
Oh my
Thank
God.
God. So no, he's. Because he did it last year, but he won't. He's not set them.
He's
not
fair.
Yeah, but he'll do ones that separate the men from the boys, as they say. But it's a streamlined version of it, so it's going to be very specific rounds. But part of that night as well is something called Best of the Fest, because I wanted to celebrate the 20th event. Almost said anniversary again, didn't I? The 20th event of Frightfest. So to celebrate that, what we're doing is we're doing something called Best of the Fest. So on the 21st, which is the day before the festival kicks off on the Wednesday night, I'm inviting about 10 of the directors. Some of them in from America, Soskers, for example. So they'll be there amongst some other British directors. And again, we haven't even talked about the amazing British stuff that we've found this year. But you'll have to check the website out. So we've invited them to look through the 1,000+ movies that we've ever screened, choose their absolute favourite. We will then go and find a rare trailer or a clip to illustrate. Then I'll get them to introduce what they love about the particular movie. We're going to show it on the big screens there. So that's the Wednesday night, Best of the Fest and the quiz, unmissable. And then there'll be a bunch of parties at the Phoenix and elsewhere over the weekend. But the main one that people really, really look forward to is the Sunday night karaoke. So after the last movie on the Sunday night, which is Nekrotronic, which is a great movie coming out from E1, directed by the Wormwood people.
Yes.
After that on the Sunday night is karaoke, where all bets are off. And I'll get a bunch of the visiting talent to do it like a mixtape. Mm-hmm. So have it so it flows. You don't get like 3 heavy metal tracks back to back or 3 pop ones. Do it so it mixes beautifully.
Nice.
And have a mix of the talent, the directing talent doing it, and the brilliant fans and the journalists and everything else. And just it's always a wild night.
Fantastic.
Which is going to go on till really, really late. So
I love it. Can't
there
wait.
you go.
Oh, I'm so excited
and
already.
of course, we haven't even talked about bloody short films, which haven't been announced yet.
Of course, yes. They've not been announced yet, right?
No. So Sheila's still working. Yeah. Sheila, our short film programmer.
Yeah.
Rowan Legg. She's working through the literally hundreds and hundreds that we've received.
That's amazing.
So there's 3 big short film showcases. There's also, and I don't know whether these get announced today or now or tomorrow, which is real time.
Yes.
A bit like Graham Norton, isn't it?
It's a bit.
Oh yes, we're talking about today. So there's a whole bunch of other free events that are happening over Frightfest as well, which are obviously they're all film related, but they're kind of So again, either check out the website or wait and see what we announce, because there's a whole bunch of other things happening.
Great! Oh my god, so exciting! I cannot wait. So. Tickets come on sale Saturday at midday,
Saturday
is that
midday,
correct?
That's the weekend passes and the day passes, yeah.
People are often getting a bit of a panic at midday, I notice. Everyone logs on at the same time. Everyone gets stressed that they're not going to get a seat.
Everybody just relax and remain calm all times. I know what it's like when I'm trying to get tickets for gigs and stuff.
Yeah, it is really difficult.
It can be a nightmare, but the dust will settle. Everything will be okay. I say with great confidence and optimism. Obviously, I'd say if you want a specific seat, get in early.
Yeah.
Because
you have your same seat for the whole 5 days, right? Or the whole day, or whatever it is that you get.
You absolutely do.
Yeah.
But then if you want to dip your toe into the Discovery stuff, we
Yes.
have those available for the weekend pass holders.
Yes, that's right.
As well.
And so for weekend pass holders that want to check out Discovery Screen stuff, that's later on, right? That's nearer the
right.
festival.
Yes,
you
it
then go
gets-
and apply for tickets.
Yes,
Yeah.
but that's a really, really pretty smooth
Yes.
process.
Yes.
So I'm led to believe.
Fantastic. Amazing. Paul, thank you so much for joining me. This
Thank
has
you,
been
Mike.
so much fun.
Always a pleasure.
Always
my
a
friend.
pleasure. And I will see you in August.
See you at the Frightfest, and
Woohoo.
hopefully all your listeners as well. See you soon.
Yes, see you then.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Woo! And there we have it. A big thank you to the brilliant Paul McEvoy. So grateful for him to come and chat to me once again. What an incredible lineup of films it's looking to be for this year's Frightfest. I'm so excited. Now, I know you got a lot of information all at once there. You probably didn't get a chance to actually kind of sort of lock and load any of those titles in your brain. So I'm going to go through them all again one more time. I'm also going to list some of them in the show notes so you have them written down. But just to emphasize, these are some of the big ones that Paul himself recommended that you don't miss. So first of all, of course, he mentioned the opening film of the festival. That is Come to Daddy. That film stars Elijah Wood and Stephen McHattie, who played Grant Mazzy in Pontypool. That looks to be a really, really fun opening movie. Definitely don't want to miss that one. The closing night film, which is called A Good Woman is Hard to Find. That is directed by Abner Pastel, who is the director of Road Games. Again, heard loads of really, really good stuff about that. Usually the closing night films are pretty great. Even if you look at the last 2 or 3, we had Gaspar Noé's Climax last year. Before that, I believe it was Tragedy Girls, which was great fun. And the year before that, it was Train to Busan. So it's usually a pretty good indication that you're going to see something special. So that one is A Good Woman is Hard to Find. Some of the other big kind of headlining movies that Paul mentioned, you've got Cruel, which is an alligator sort of monster movie directed by Alexandre Aja, who directed Haute Tension and The Hills Have Eyes and Piranha 3D. So a pretty good, well-respected director there. You've also got Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which is one that I am particularly excited about. It's directed by Andre Ovredel, who directed Troll Hunter, and it's produced and written by Guillermo del Toro. So exciting. I would definitely recommend checking that one out. Another biggie is Nekrotronic. That's another big studio movie. It's a sci-fi starring Monica Bellucci. That looks to be a lot of fun. We've also got Ready or Not, written by American Horror Story's very own Ryan Murphy and starring Andy McDowell. This is a comedy horror about a deadly game of hide and seek. Interesting. There's a couple of movies from Glasgow, 2 of my favourites that I saw at Glasgow. First of all, we've got Freaks, which is a brilliant sci-fi movie starring Bruce Dern and Emile Hirsch. It's a kind of, I guess you'd call it a kind of mix between Stephen King's Firestarter and Heroes, the TV show. It's really, really great. I would recommend it. And also the brilliant Here Comes Hell, which was a real crowd pleaser in Glasgow, a kind of small indie black and white horror comedy. That's the Agatha Christie meets Lucio Fulci movie. Me and Louise Blaine saw this at Glasgow and we both absolutely loved it, so don't miss that one. You've also got Rabid, the remake of Rabid, made by the Soska sisters, who will also both be there at the festival to introduce it. And then there are a couple of smaller movies that Paul personally recommended. It sounded like Paul's favourite movie of the whole festival, the one he recommends the most highly, is Knives and Skin. He described this as a Twin Peaks-esque mystical teen noir that follows a young girl's disappearance in the rural Midwest. That sounds really great. I am definitely going to check that one out. When I asked him what the scariest movie is at the festival, he mentioned a movie called The Deeper You Dig. I don't know much about that one, but the plot synopsis says, in the aftermath of a roadside accident, the line between the living and the dead collapses for a mother, a daughter, and a stranger. That sounds great. I'm definitely going to check that one out. When I asked him to recommend a more sort of strong, hardcore horror movie, he mentioned the film Porno, which again, I'm going to go see that based purely on the title. That sounds great. A couple of horror comedies. Paul recommended a movie called Tales from the Lodge, which is a portmanteau horror, an old Amicus-style comedy horror, portmanteau horror. I mean, it sounds great until you read that it stars Mackenzie Crook and Johnny Vegas, which puts me off somewhat, but you never know, that might be one worth checking out. And for people that might be interested in documentaries, it sounds as though there were a couple of interesting documentaries there that Paul mentioned. He recommended one called Sick, Savage and Sensual, which is a documentary about the real-life serial killer Al Adamson. Sounds interesting. And a documentary on folk horror pioneer Michael Reeves, director of Witchfinder General, who died only a couple of years after making that movie. So that could also be a really interesting documentary worth checking out. And as well as all of these new movies, they will also be playing a couple of classics. So as Paul mentioned, they will be playing David Cronenberg's original Rabid on the big screen, and Dario Argento's Tenebrae. And of course, Dario himself will be in attendance at Frightfest this year. So I'm going to go to that. It's been a long time since I saw Tenebrae. I wasn't a massive fan of it. It often takes me a few tries to really get into Dario's movies, but I feel like watching it on the big screen with Dario there to introduce it is something that I just absolutely cannot miss, so I am definitely going to check that out. And there we have it. I mean, that's just a tiny percentage of films there that are showing at this year's Fright Fest that Paul got time to talk about. So if you're interested in going to the festival, check out the website, check out the program, see what's going on, see what you fancy seeing. And if you want to discuss the movies, if you want to discuss who's seeing what or get recommendations from other people, then please do join the Evolution of Horror discussion group. There are loads of people in that group that are going to this year's Fright Fest. They've been talking about buying tickets together or sitting together or meetups, whatever. It's a really great place to kind of discuss the festival, especially if it's your first time going. So you can find that group on Facebook. A big thank you for listening, and join me again very soon for all of this and more on the Evolution of Horror.